Welcome. I will provide an explanation of the movie They Call Me Geek, which was released in 2015. Enzo Cicciotti, a thief from Tor Bella Monica, Rome, is the main character. The movie begins with Enzo running away from the police after stealing an expensive watch. In an attempt to hide, he seeks refuge in an abandoned crane near the river Tiber. Unfortunately, the police discover his hiding spot, prompting Enzo to jump into the river as a last resort. While trying to climb back onto the crane, he grabs onto an underwater barrel. However, the barrel breaks, exposing him to radioactive waste. Despite this unfortunate turn of events, Enzo manages to pull himself up and rushes back home, unaware of the dangers he has encountered. During his bus ride home, Enzo experiences frequent coughing and struggles to lift his head, coughing up a black substance. His condition worsens at night as he vomits a mysterious liquid and continues to cough uncontrollably. Surprisingly, when he wakes up the next morning, he feels significantly better. After completing his morning routine, Enzo pays a visit to his neighbor and fellow gang member Sergio to sell the stolen watch. Sergio, who works for a gangster named Fabio, also known as the Gypsy, discusses a plan with Enzo to retrieve drugs from a pair of drug mule brothers. While they are discussing the plan, someone hands Fabio a phone that is not the color he desired. Out of anger, Fabio violently beats the person to death for this minor mistake. His associates, accustomed to his erratic behavior, simply request the removal of the dead body from the premises. Following this incident, Sergio purchases the stolen watch from Enzo for €100. Initially intending to leave after the deal, Enzo finds himself drawn into Sergio's proposal. Sergio convinces him to join in a risky mission to retrieve the drugs, and despite the dangers involved, Enzo agrees due to the promise of financial gain. After their encounter, they proceed to Sergio's residence to gather the necessary items for their transaction. It is during this visit that Enzo has his first meeting with Sergio's daughter, Alessia, whose behavior perplexes him. The house is adorned with several childlike drawings that Alessia has created and displayed. She also shares her fascination with the steel G-Ganem and genuinely believes that the character G will one day come to her rescue. Once they depart from Sergio's house, he apologizes for his daughter's actions and discloses that she suffers from psychological damage and an obsession with the steel G-Ganem. Alessia has always been a unique child, but following her mother's passing, she has withdrawn from reality. The duo picks up the two drug mule brothers near an airport and transports them to an under-construction building. Their task is straightforward: extract the drug packets concealed within the brothers' bodies. Tragically, one of the brothers succumbs to an overdose when a packet bursts inside his stomach. The surviving brother becomes furious with Sergio, blaming him for not taking them to the hospital earlier. In response, Sergio casually mentions the need to dissect the deceased brother to retrieve the substance. Enraged, the surviving brother seizes Sergio's gun and shoots him multiple times before succumbing to his own injuries. Sergio retaliates by forcefully slamming the man's head against the wall, rendering him unconscious. Despite being shot and falling from the 10th floor onto the solid ground below, Enzo defies all odds and regains consciousness, albeit in great pain. Confused and traumatized by the harrowing events he has just witnessed, Enzo begins to flee, driven by instinct. At a different location, Fabio and his associates accompany Nunzio Cosimo, a notorious drug dealer and terrorist leader of the Caroma clan, to a club. Fabio's original plan was to sell the drugs brought by Sergio to Nunzia. However, with both Sergio and the drug mule dead, he faces the challenge of explaining the situation to her. For the time being, he decides to deceive her by claiming that the deal was a success, fully aware that revealing the truth could cost him his life. Meanwhile, Enzo returns home and encounters Alessia on his way. She inquires about her father, but he chooses to ignore her. Despite his dismissal, she persistently pounds on his door. Frustrated, Enzo's anger leads him to punch the door, inadvertently creating a hole. Surprised by his own strength, he proceeds to effortlessly rearrange the furniture. Later that night, utilizing his newfound power, he steals an entire ATM machine by using his strength to break it open. Upon returning home, he uses the stolen money to purchase food. In addition to his superhuman strength, Enzo realizes he possesses the ability to heal rapidly. The gunshot wound on his shoulder from a few hours ago miraculously vanishes in an instant. Downstairs, Fabio and his men arrive, searching for Sergio and threatening Alessia in an attempt to uncover his whereabouts. Unaware of the situation, Alessia remains silent, further infuriating Fabio. He places a butcher knife against her throat, demanding to know the whereabouts of her father. Confused and frightened, Alessia cannot provide any information. Enzo suddenly intervenes, breaking in through the window while concealing his identity with a mask and hoodie. He effortlessly lifts one of Fabio's henchmen and slams him onto a table. The others attempt to fight back, but are swiftly defeated by Enzo's superhuman abilities. Recognizing the futility of their situation, Fabio and his associates hastily retreat. However, before departing, Fabio manages to injure Enzo by chopping off one of his toes with a swift attack. Enzo and Alessia seek refuge at his house, ensuring her safety. In an attempt to reattach his severed toe, Enzo tapes it back to his foot, hoping it will heal overnight. Alessia, due to her mental illness, believes Enzo is the superhero G from her beloved anime and thinks he has finally come to rescue her. Enzo chooses not to correct her and goes along with the fantasy. The next morning, Enzo discovers that his toe has not magically reattached. Accepting this reality, he asks Alessia if she has any relatives with whom she can stay, as he doesn't want the responsibility of caring for her. Unfortunately, Alessia reveals that her only relative is her father. With no other options, Enzo takes her to a residential care home where she previously stayed while her father was imprisoned. Reluctantly, Alessia clings to Enzo, but he assures her falsely that he will return soon. Meanwhile, CCTV footage of Enzo stealing the ATM spreads widely on the internet, catching the attention of Fabio. Realizing that the man in the footage is the same person they encountered in Sergio's apartment, tension builds within the gang as they have yet to locate the drugs. Antonio, Fabio's right-hand man, proposes taking a loan to pay Nunzia for the deal, but Fabio dismisses the idea. Instead, he suggests robbing an armored truck they had initially planned to target after the deal. Upon returning home, Enzo discovers a set of papers among Sergio's belongings, detailing an elaborate plan to rob the very same armored truck. The following day, Fabio and his henchmen lie in wait by the highway, armed and ready to carry out the heist. However, Enzo intercepts the truck and steals its contents before they have a chance to act. Despite Fabio firing multiple rounds at him, Enzo manages to escape their pursuit. Later, policemen arrive at Enzo's door, informing him that they found Alessia wandering alone in the streets, searching for him. Enzo takes her in but scolds her for inadvertently involving the police. Innocently, Alessia complains that he did not come to meet her as promised. That night, they watch her favorite anime together, bonding over their shared experience. While engaged in their activities, Enzo attempts to establish a closer connection with Alessia. However, Alessia becomes overwhelmed and pleads with him to stop, fearing potential harm. Upon calming her down, Alessia confides in Enzo about her past experience of sexual abuse. The following day, she insists that Enzo accompany her to save her father, believing he possesses superhuman abilities. Enzo takes her to a deserted amusement park and utilizes his strength to move a Ferris wheel, enabling Alessia to ride it. Elsewhere, Fabio and Antonio find themselves in a heated argument as Antonio proposes taking a loan to resolve the issues with Nunzia, while Fabio adamantly refuses. When Antonio refuses to back down, Fabio commands his Rottweilers to attack, resulting in Antonio's tragic demise. Meanwhile, Alessia and Enzo visit a shopping mall to fulfill her long-held desire of acquiring a princess dress. Their time together escalates into kissing and lovemaking within the confines of a dressing room. Subsequently, Enzo decides to disclose the truth about her father to Alessia, leading to her emotional distress as she blames Enzo for her father's demise. News of the armored robbery spreads, casting Enzo as the infamous supercriminal. Fueled by jealousy, Fabio becomes determined to acquire superhuman strength akin to Enzo's. Alessia attempts to escape from Enzo and boards a tram, but he uses his powers to prevent the tram from departing and apologizes to Alessia. Reluctantly, she agrees to stay with him, requesting that he wear his mask for their next encounter. As Enzo surveys his surroundings, he realizes that people are recording him, potentially witnessing his tram-stopping abilities. In haste, he flees the scene with Alessia. Simultaneously, cornered with limited options, Fabio meets one of his drug dealer acquaintances in an effort to secure a loan to satisfy Nunzia's demands. Suddenly, they are ambushed by an enraged Nunzia and her henchmen, infuriated by Fabio's failure to meet the payment deadline. A fierce shootout ensues between the two factions, ultimately leaving only Nunzia and Fabio alive. Returning to his office, Fabio discovers that Nunzia's men have already eliminated his entire entourage. Subsequently, news of the supercriminal's revelation emerges on television. Recognizing Enzo, Fabio sets out to confront him and discover the secret behind his powers. In the meantime, Enzo and Alessia have made the decision to flee to a different city. Aware that the police have identified his appearance, they opt to spend the night at a hotel. Seizing the opportunity, Enzo shares his childhood experiences with Alessia, recounting the tragic loss of all his friends during a robbery. Suddenly, Fabio forcefully intrudes and incapacitates Enzo with a tranquilizer gun. Upon regaining consciousness, Enzo finds himself bound to a bed with duct tape. Fabio menaces him, using Alessia's life as leverage to coerce the revelation of his strength's secret. In response, Enzo guides him to the riverbank and urges him to jump in. Suspicious, Fabio believes Enzo's intention is to drown him in an attempt to escape. At that moment, Nunzia and her associates arrive, initiating a shootout with Enzo as the target. In the ensuing chaos, both Fabio and Alessia suffer fatal gunshot wounds. To exact vengeance, Nunzia immolates Fabio and casts his burning body into the river. With her dying breath, Alessia implores Enzo to utilize his powers to aid others. Enzo embraces her, grieving her loss. The following morning, Fabio resurfaces from the water, miraculously unharmed. The radioactive substance has bestowed upon him superhuman strength. He proceeds to seek retribution by massacring everyone at Nunzia's location, recording the brutal act with the aspiration of attaining the same level of fame as Enzo. During his rampage, he discovers hidden explosives in the house, exposing Nunzia's sinister plot to bomb the city. Meanwhile, Enzo roams aimlessly, disheartened by the loss of Alessia. Near him, a woman and her daughter are involved in a car accident, and he employs his powers to rescue the young girl from a burning vehicle. Overwhelmed with gratitude, the mother embraces Enzo, evoking memories of Alessia and her final words. Shortly after, he witnesses a televised video in which Fabio threatens to bomb the Stadio Olimpico. Driven by his newfound abilities, Fabio seeks to instill terror among the populace, simply because he can. Enzo embarks on a swift quest to locate Fabio, venturing into a stadium teeming with a jubilant crowd engrossed in a game. After an ardent search, he discovers Fabio in the parking lot, clutching the remote for the explosives. A tussle ensues, and eventually, Fabio eludes Enzo by disappearing into the throng inside the stadium. The pursuit recommences outside, culminating in Enzo locating the explosive device within an ambulance. Regrettably, he cannot disarm it and opts to carry it while sprinting towards the Musica Armando bridge spanning the river Tiber. Fabio tracks him down and thwarts Enzo's attempt to discard the explosive into the river. In a final confrontation, the two adversaries fiercely battle for control of the bomb. With a mere minute remaining before detonation, Enzo seizes the explosive and leaps into the river alongside Fabio. The subsequent explosion claims Fabio's life, leaving his decapitated head to land on the bridge. Enzo is presumed deceased as well, hailed as a hero by both the media and the public. In the closing scene, Enzo gazes upon Rome from the Colosseum, assuming the role of guardian. He adorns a Gypsy mask, a precious creation knitted for him long ago by Alessia.